And Joey Logano, Joey effing Logano, your 2024 NASCAR Cup champion. He did it again. Wins Vegas, wins the championship, his third time winning a race in the round of 8 and then taking home the championship. He gets to Phoenix. He does what he needs to do and gets there. Brian and I will recap our betting card on the season, our championship futures, our DraftKings picks, everything from Phoenix, as well as kind of spin this forward. What are we expecting? There's going to be some silly stuff, new charters, new teams, new rides. A lot to get into. We'll break it all down in today's Angle of Pursuit podcast.
Ross Chastain used the wall all the way around this racetrack.
Logano has been the class of the field.
Check out the big brain on Brad.
Yeah, I need to change my underwear.
Brian Twining, Joey fucking Logano. He got us again.
It's astounding at how well this team is able to adapt to the situation. And, you know, he said it after the race. He said it in the weeks leading up to this race. And he echoed this during his post-race presser. Like, they truly believed that they had a tremendous advantage over the rest of the championship 4 guys with those 2 weeks of preparation on top of, you know, just everything else that went into the championship race. And, you know, it came to fruition. It was something that you and I had spoke about after he won Las Vegas, that Logano was going to be a serious contender with those 2 weeks of preparation. And, you know, some people could kind of shoo that and just say, well, you know, there's not really too much you can realistically do, just because, you know, you still have to go out and race the previous 2 weeks and the other guys are still going to get, you know, an ample amount of time to prepare for this race. But there's just something to this 22 team that, and Penske for that matter. I mean, shit, Logano and Blaney finished 1 and 2. And although I think you can say that Ryan Blaney was probably the better car, Joey Logano was not that far off in second, in my opinion. And so, you know, there's just something about this Penske garage as a whole that when the lights get brighter, they turn it up another dial and nobody else has anything for them.
Yeah, they have a clear understanding of what they want to do when they get there. They have a plan. There's a reason why they've won 3 championships in a row.
Yep.
And as we talked on late Saturday night, it was Blaney and Logano for the race. It was Blaney and Logano for the championship, and everyone else was kind of behind them.
Yeah, and you know, that was I was pretty surprised too. Like, Byron, for as good as he looked in practice, and I think it was the immediate aftermath of practice, Byron had jumped to like the second favorite and he had kind of shortened the gap between him and Ryan Blaney. But I mean, damn, like, the only way he was able to even have a shot there was by extending that second run into, or that first run into stage 3, going a little bit long there, and then jumping the field because of the caution, and then hoping that his teammates of Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott could run enough interference on Logano and Blaney to allow him to get out to a big enough lead to even try to protect their late, because they did not have the short run speed nor the long run speed to contend with those 2 Penske cars.
Yeah, and it was funny. There was like 2 laps where Logano like picked up a little bit, and they were like, "Oh, Logano found something." Logano
He didn't find shit. Like, look, Logano's car was good over the long run. It was good, but there is no argument. Ryan Blaney's car was essentially the same thing that we saw last week in Martinsville. Over the long run, his car turned the best. His car maintained the same speed. His car just could run multiple lines. Logano won this race because he was out to such a large lead and he was able to mirror drive. He said so as much in his post-race presser. Like, he estimated it was probably about 50-50 in terms of him driving through his front window and mirror driving, because he knew, had Blaney been able to get a run on him, and if he didn't take the air off of Ryan's nose, Ryan was going to pass him. It was clear. He could turn better. He was faster. Altogether just a slightly better car than the 22.
If that's anybody but Logano, does he get there?
So it's so funny. I think, if I'm not mistaken, somebody asked that in the media center, and I can't recall what his answer was, but from my opinion, like, I don't think either of the 24 or especially the 45. That sucks for Reddick, but neither of those two guys would have been able to hold off Blaney. But I do think there is a huge reason behind the fact that Blaney didn't push as hard to get to his bumper, and that is the team aspect of Penske.
Yeah, and obviously Logano's got a knack for one like we've talked about it all season. If he grabs like a spot, you're gonna have to fight like hell to get around him. He's not just gonna give it to you.
Oh yeah, no, it's not going to be easy
But
whatsoever.
I do feel like, especially towards the end, I don't know if Blaney just realized that like he just couldn't get there. It was a teammate thing. His tires weren't quite where they needed to be.
Yeah.
Some combination of the three, but it really felt like he let it go a little bit.
Well, yeah, like so Ryan, he did admit that he had burned his stuff up getting to Logano because I mean, you're not clipping off 2.5 to 3/10 a lap
Yeah.
as you're chasing somebody unless you're pushing it slightly harder than the guy that you're chasing.
Yeah.
And so obviously like I don't think he had a lot left in his tires or in his car there, but it was really interesting to me. I kind of observed Ryan Blaney's post-race press conference from the vantage point of he had almost immediately accepted the fact that he ran second, and you did not see the disappointment that you would expect from a guy who came oh so close to claiming his second consecutive championship, unless you really factor in that as a whole organization, these guys are, I don't want to say okay with their teammate winning, but there's a different level of respect within the Penske garage than there is from any other team in the sport, it seems like.
Penske seems a lot more team sport than individual sport. And where all
Yes,
the other
yeah.
garages have a lot more individual.
Yeah, it's very interesting to just recognize that from an outsider's perspective, because you would think that a guy who came so close would have been like throwing his helmet or at least just exuding that disappointment. But
Yeah.
for Blaney's credit, like he accepted it all in stride. You could tell he was disappointed, but it almost seemed like as soon as he got out of there, he was just going to be waiting by the 22 hauler, and they were all going to be partying at the end of the night. Like,
yeah, unfortunately, Logano's the Ricky Bobby, and Ryan Blaney's just a little bit of shake and bake. He's asking to get a win this time, and Ricky Bobby's saying, "No, not this time."
yeah,
I felt like there was a point with maybe 2 or 3 to go. I'm trying to remember where Blaney was trying to make a run, and I loved how everybody was like, "I'm getting out of the way. I'm going to let these guys race. I'm
yes,
not going to be the reason why." But there was a run, and he got caught up behind some jabroni on the high line, and Logano went low. And I think if he had clean air, he would have gotten by Logano or gotten close enough where by the next lap he would have gotten in front of him. So I'm trying to, because obviously both of us were heavily invested in Ryan Blaney. We wanted Ryan Blaney to win. That was our best outcome. Or at least for me. I think Reddick was close for you if he was, but Blaney was.
no, it was
close.
definitely Blaney was the
Okay.
largest payout. Yeah.
So I'm trying to I'm trying to be like rational and reasonable, and it's obviously not easy to do. You get to push, there's only so much you can do, but like,
Yeah.
it was a frustrating end to a incredible season. We were talking a little bit before I pushed to record, but like, we had Bell at Phoenix. He should have won. We had Blaney and Reddick at Homestead. Obviously, Reddick gets there, but Blaney could have won Homestead. And then he went. Obviously, we had him at Martinsville, so he wins Martinsville. And then he should probably, he was the best car at Phoenix. He probably should have won at Phoenix. Like, Blaney could have won 3 in a row to win the championship. We could have won 4 in a row. Like, to look at our betting card, given the way we finished the season, it's a little bit frustrating. Obviously, you kicked my ass. You had an amazing season. I had an okay season. I think post like All-Star break, I think we got so much smarter about not firing the stupid shit. But I'm really excited for next year because I think we've just like, in terms of how we attack the board, like this sport is not easy to bet, especially initially. Like there's a lot of learning, and hopefully the viewers can glean a little bit of what Brian and I have learned over the past 3 years of betting this sport. Because I was looking back at our old betting cards and like
It was terrible.
so bad, so much red, and now like
Yeah.
even like the start this year, like there was a like obviously we started off hot, we hit Suarez at Atlanta, everything was looking great, and then kind of hit a lull. I hit a lull in the middle of the year, and then we kind of got hot at the end, but then you were like much more consistent kind of along the way.
It's
Yeah,
also
it was fun.
something else too to consider when you're looking at betting a sport as volatile as NASCAR is finding the proper time to enter a market, but then also you hear Chris Wormy talk about this, who's probably at the forefront of betting this sport, and he talks about being able to accept when you're wrong and hedging off of a bet at post qualifying. Like if you take a matchup per se prior to practice and qualifying, and then you find the same matchup at a different book with the odds flipped for the correct guy post, and maybe you cut your profit margin down by 20%, and but you're guaranteeing yourself a win. That's the better way to look at this, as opposed to just sticking to your guns and doing it, because ultimately the goal is to make money and be a profitable bettor.
Yeah,
And at NASCAR, it's so difficult because you're not picking 1v1, and obviously you're going with the matchup, but there's so many other variables that come into play with each of those markets that
yeah,
any way that you can guarantee yourself a way to get out of there in the green should be the goal.
yeah. If you can lock in a profit, even if it's a small one, you should be doing that. Obviously, if you're hitting big outrights, that obviously helps keep everything going. But
Yeah.
your betting card should be light on outrights and heavy on matchups and placements and finding ways to get value. And if your book is hanging a plus 250 and it should be 4-1, don't bet it. Like I
Yeah,
know it's
exactly.
tempting. I know 250 is great, but over the long term, you're getting squeezed. And even if you're hitting them consistently,
Yep.
it's still like, I
I
don't know.
think
And that
that's
the other thing is like going back and evaluating your card and being like, did I win because I was right, or did
Yep.
I win because I got lucky?
Yeah, I think those are two very important points, like you said about, and something that I've practiced much more, as you said, about a third of the way through the season, and something that, like we were talking a couple weeks ago, I've had to talk you off the ledge, with like during races is like for us living in California, obviously offshores are our only way to get action unless I'm in Vegas or traveling to a race. But sometimes we'll have a outright on a guy who is 9-1 at our book, but he's widely available at 12 or 13. And yes, that's still a 9-1 payout, but I've become so much more responsible in that not getting those extra $4 on that number is too much for me to actually wager on it now. So I'd
Yeah.
rather just have zero action and avoid it than bet it. And then the same thing, like for you texting me about like top 10 markets on guys that are like 250 offshore and they're like 5-1 at books widely available. And it's hard to reasonably want to take that action knowing that you're getting double the price, which is a more acceptable number on these guys than being forced to take a smaller number. And to Kyle's point, in the long run, you're probably going to wind up losing money on those bets at those much shorter numbers because they're also taking more juice than on the other guys that you're betting.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's become a practice and responsibility, I guess I would say.
And there is so much randomness and so much stuff out of your control that consistently buying the short number, buying the bad number, you're just going to end up losing in the long run. Like you need to get paid out when you are right, and if you are wrong, then you know you don't like it's. I'd much rather be betting 4-1. Okay, that's an appropriate price, or that's a good price. Than it's plus 280. Like I still like them a lot, but nah. Hard pass. Okay, let's share my screen. We can kind of go through some more stuff. Before we do that, I want to give a shout out to Kurt Wanabe, who won our Grid Rivals League. I'm going to be sending some your prize over today. but I wanted to shout you out on the season-long contest. Absolutely crushed it. Did enough just to hold us off. Brian and I were third and fourth. So obviously we didn't get there. My computer's glitching out for a second. There we go.
Technology, it's my favorite.
Yeah, I'm a little okay. There we go. It was like thinking for a second, but yeah, I want to give him a shout out for an incredible season. We'll definitely run something back from a season long contest perspective
100%.
next year. It was really fun to kind of get in there. So hopefully, if you missed out this year, you can get in with us next year. If you have any suggestions for where we should host that, we did Grid Rival this year. It's a fun contest. Might just run that back. But if you have other ideas or other places that could make sense, drop them down in the comments. Slide up in those DMs. We're always looking for ideas, and we're looking for ideas for kind of what you guys want for the off season. Do you want to just go dark for a while and not really talk until lines drop? Maybe after Thanksgiving is usually. I feel like we talked a little bit last year after Thanksgiving, and then kind of January, February is when we really.
I do know one book already has 2025 championship futures.
Can I pull it up?
It's BetMGM. Yeah, they already have.
Okay, so we'll pull that up before we get out of here today.
Yeah,
just to
gross, but
yeah. But if you have thoughts on what you want to see, or content ideas or information that would be helpful, or if you want us to get guests on to talk about stuff, just holler. Just let us know down in the comments. Let us know via DM, and we can definitely make that work. But we need to know from you guys what's going to make sense, what you're actually going to want to see, all that good stuff. So let's review the card because it wasn't very fun. Reddick over Logano obviously didn't win, but plus 165. I think I would bet that again. I know Logano's awesome here. I know he's good at grabbing track position. But for a playoff versus playoff driver getting that much juice, I felt like it was worthwhile, especially because we thought Reddick could actually win.
Yeah. Well, and we talked about this in at the end of the week. Sorry to cut you off, but when you have 4 guys and you're essentially racing only 3 of them, there is no reason not to want to take the big number on any of them against any of the other 3 competitors, simply because of the randomness that could occur at any NASCAR race.
Yeah. And obviously with Reddick, because I mean, Bell's a guy we typically trust here, but his car blew up in the first couple laps. It was hilarious. I don't know, hilarious is the right word. Very, very on brand for Ty Gibbs to crash after 2
Oh my gosh. I almost had a heart attack. Just like everybody that watches our shows knows, I'm a bit of a Reddick stan. So when I saw the monster logo on the hood, I was just like, but and then somebody next to me in the media center reminded me, no, he's driving the Beast Penske. So I was like, oh, thank goodness. I mean, is it what a way to would have gone out had that been Reddick there wrecking in on the first lap of the championship race.
Yeah. And we didn't talk about Reddick, as Chris Wermy likes to point out. We tend to be a little excited about Tyler Reddick, but it definitely felt like he was the 4th car for 80% of the day. There was a section of stage 3 where it looked like he found something and he was getting faster and he was making a run and then ultimately faded away. Was there any time for you where you felt like he might get near the front and have a shot?
Honestly, the only way that I saw an avenue for the 45 to have a chance at winning this was if we got, I wouldn't say an overtime restart, but a very short run to end the race. I thought that just his aggressiveness on restarts, and we saw it, I believe it was either the beginning of stage 2 or maybe the second restart after stage 2, where he took them 4 wide on the outside and jumped 4 guys to move from, I think it was 9th all the way up to 4th or 5th on the restart. And to me, that would have been the only opportunity that he would have had to be able to battle it out for a championship, just simply because the car was off pace when in comparison to the other championship guys by about 1.5 or 2/10. So, there wasn't a moment where I thought, oh man, we've really got a shot here to cash these long championship futures on Tyler. And that's just, when you just perusing our betting card, it's the reason why we were both very light on the championship drivers, because we already had action on the championship futures. There was no reason to get more exposure to them in matchups against each other if they weren't long numbers like Reddick over Logano or long numbers on the outright. I mean, when you looked at the outright board immediately before we went green, the only guy that to me was worth grabbing would have been Reddick at that 12-1. But even still, like it didn't seem, cost analysis wise, it just wasn't worth it when you're already sitting on those humongous championship futures.
Yeah, and we mentioned that. We're like, he's probably not going to win. He's clearly the fourth car, but that number is not where it should be relative to everything else. So if you don't have any exposure to him or want to get in a little bit, he made sense. But as you mentioned, we were exposed already, so it didn't make sense for us to jump in. The Priest group, what happened to Ryan Priest? Like, I thought he was going to be good, and he just kind of was in the...
Yeah, I think he got like a penalty or something late, or he got a flat, I think it was. And so he had to limp down. He wound up going multiple laps down because he was running, I want to say, around the 12th spot or so when that occurred. And it was immediately after a pit cycle had ended. So like, obviously we were in the clear there, and then just car blew up. So I mean,
we were leveraged on him on the betting card, on DraftKings.
I was just gonna say it's very on brand this year for SHR to have an absolutely atrocious day across the board in their final race as a cup team.
Yeah, although Gregson did get all the way up to 12th, so good for him.
Yeah, but I mean,
Bowman over Cindric pisses me off. Of course, he beats him by one spot. Of course.
Look, I jumped on Cindric over 15.5 finishing position very heavily when that number dropped. So much so that it was my largest bet for the race. And that number had actually gotten taken off the board from Caesars because it had gotten bet to 16.5, I want to say within 20 minutes of the line being posted. And so obviously I still feel like I was on the right side. And, but going back to Penske's credit, all three of them unloaded fast. And for Cindric, he unloaded much faster than I had anticipated. So, whatever.
Yeah.
I'll take it with a grain of salt. It was the last race of the year. Didn't affect me too much, but I was still kind of pissed to see him run.
And then Briscoe obviously wasn't getting there, but Chris Buescher was making a run at one point, looked really good, and then kind of faded. But
there were numerous times during stage 2 that I was thinking to myself, and I had texted you and said, Chris Buescher is flying and he's got a shot here if he gets clean air. That he was maybe the second or third fastest car on the track. And this is when factoring in the championship 4 guys as well. Obviously, clean air at Phoenix, I think, is the largest advantage at any track. I want to say there's just something to this track type and where they are here that when you're out front, you're just much faster than everybody else. But Chris Buescher was running similar lap times to the leader while running in 9th and 8th place, passing guys.
Well, and I think that long, flat backstretch really helps. Like you can especially if your car is fast, you can get away and then, deal with the corners.
Yeah, and it's something we talked about ahead of practice, after practice. Like Chris Buescher was on the radio during practice, my balance on the long run is fantastic. Yeah. And that RFK team is probably the best team in the sport in turning lack of short run speed into tremendous long run speed.
Yeah. So, a little underwhelming, but whatever.
But at 80-1?
Yeah, 80-1, he was a great bet.
Exactly. That's a great bet.
So obviously Reddick over Blaney hit on qualifying. That was a great bet on your part. Close enough. Plus 140. Done deal. Yeah. Truex.
Man.
One final time. Marty just threw some lead weight and dropped.
Look, I I jumped off the boat for a few weeks there, but I think going back to market entry, the prices of 20 or like I had it at 40 were tremendous bets just because if he unloaded well, which he did, he looked fantastic again in practice. He put it on the friggin' pole, the first guy not in the championship four to pull it during the championship race. Like everything was steering towards a storybook ending for Marty. And as soon as we had our first set of pit stops and he came out, I believe it was 7th, I basically immediately went and marked these as L's because we had seen it so many times before that once he lost that track position up front, I don't want to say that they quit, but I just don't think that there is the same resolve from this team as a whole with him ending his career to want to, as I asked him in the media center, fumbling through my words, take the gloves off and go no gloves Martin Truex Jr. Like he just wanted to do that in a championship race unless he was fighting for a win. And so once he lost that track position, it was all but over for any of these wagers.
Yep. Yeah, so as I mentioned, you kicked my ass in the season-long contest. Amazing season by you. I was in the green until I gave it up this week, so congratulations.
I mean, considering the amount of bets that we place, like, it's still really good.
Yeah. And I was looking back at our other ones and like how much better we got this year is crazy. And I could do some math on kind of like month by month trends and stuff to see how we're doing because I do feel like we got better, but I want to go back through during the off season and kind of evaluate some of this stuff and see where we did dumb stuff and see where we made smart bets. And it's easy to look at the green and the red and be like, oh yeah, I know, bad bet, good bet. No, there's a lot of kind of in between. And then we'll flip over and look at season long. Apparently I didn't add Logano at some point, which I did personally, but didn't add it here. So that's fine. I had enough Blaney and enough Reddick and added some Hamlin and Chase at big numbers. Obviously you had Logano. Your season long bets, we'll have to do our season bet show again.
For sure.
Freaking crushed it. Bell over 1.5 at plus money or even money, whatever. Look at
that was stupid.
Elliott over 1.5. I still think it was a great bet, especially as early as he got his first win. And he had real shots late and was the betting favorite at a lot of tracks. So I would make that bet again. Obviously, your Logano bet was an absolute smash at plus 140. Reddick plus 140. Before you even
continue, let me just say Joey under next year is going to be a bet by me if it's anywhere above the 2. If it's anywhere in the 2.5 to 3 range.
Yeah, because we did that last year, and I think it was like I want to say 3 or maybe even 3.5.
It was 3.5. And look, we see this every time with Joey Logano. He wins a championship. Next year, he has the championship hangover. It's just.
Yep. Brad K got his win even at minus 145. That was a great bet. Hamlin over 2.5. That was a great bet. You had Logano in the Champ 4. And it was weird. Why would we put Logano in the Champ 4 but not bet him to win the championship? That's silly.
Well, I did. I
know, because you're smarter than I am. That's why you kicked my ass this year. And I had Tyler Reddick in the championship 4 plus 325. I like that bet.
And then quite honestly, too, on the Logano number, like obviously I didn't go back and add the 18, which I actually did bet right ahead of Vegas. But if I hadn't had this exposure of 14 already, that was probably added, probably like halfway through the year. I probably would have put that 18 number on there just because I think going forward, as you were talking about going back and reviewing the card and where we can get better and all that type of stuff. I don't know about you, but I'm almost in a situation now where I don't think it's worth betting anybody to begin the year on a championship future outside of maybe a Kyle Larson or Christopher Bell, just kind of looking forward because of the way that we've seen a lot of these guys, and for that matter, the last 2 champions come from drivers who were super long odds in the round of 8. And when you factor in that we get Talladega as the meat of the sandwich in that round next year, like you're going to get some ridiculous numbers of the remaining 8 guys next year in the playoffs. So I mean, my championship future card may just be every single person that's in the championship 8 at that
Yeah.
time, and you're probably going to walk out with a profit.
Well, I think that was probably the biggest improvement we made this year is putting ourselves in a spot so when we got to Phoenix,
Oh yeah.
we had ourselves in a really good spot. We had big wins on a couple guys. We had small wins on a guy, and then obviously we're both naked on Byron, but
Yeah.
ultimately that didn't matter. But I think
Yeah, and
being patient, waiting for the number, because even like I grabbed some Larson, I don't know, way back in like May or June, and that
yeah.
same number was still available. Like it went away, obviously, and it was super short. And sure, he could have won and then gotten to to Phoenix as a 2.5, 3, and that 6 or 7 never came back, but it came back.
Yeah,
So
but the thing with Kyle Larson, and I don't think the books are going to sleep on Christopher Bell next year, by the way,
no,
either. So like you're not going to be getting the 7.25 or 8, whatever it was
yeah,
that people were able to jump
yeah,
on.
I think
He's
I got
probably going to be
850.
him and Larson, I'm going to say next year across the board are probably going to be 5
Yeah,
for the most part, the entire season.
yeah. But like especially like a lot of these like guys like Blaney, there was long numbers, Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin.
Yeah.
Once again, wait and buy your time and wait to enter the market at the right price. And if the right price doesn't enter and they only hang a 4 or a 5, make sure they get to Phoenix with a chance and then bet them at 3. Like even Blaney and or even Byron and
Reddick.
Reddick's numbers to win the race were crazy high. And obviously, with this year there was some opportunity with Larson with a Bell to win the race without winning the championship. Normally those guys are kind of the ones, and that's why the prices are the way they are. But like I think being patient and making sure you grab the best number, and if you have to throw an extra $50 to make the numbers make sense, do that. But don't force something just because you think that maybe it goes from 4.5 to 425 or from 4 to
Yeah.
375. Like you're not really getting that much of a boost. So that's definitely, I think we made tremendous strides from a season long perspective there as well. I could pull up DraftKings quickly. I feel like we got to some good stuff and then we kind of not so much. Kazman underwhelmed. Sure, Kazman. Priest, obviously we talked about him. Josh Berry got up
Yeah,
to
but so
24th.
I just want to comment on this one though. So even with the 4 points from the Kazman, had Ryan Priest not had that flat, like you're looking at a much better finish
Yeah,
from this lineup.
yeah.
I don't know how much further up the board this thing moves, but
Yeah, I mean he was 20%. So, but yeah, um, I think we got much better at DraftKings too along the way. This was we did a lot of Truex stuff,
yeah,
and I
that
knew I
definitely
should
hurt.
have not gotten so aggressive on the Truex, but
Hey, the numbers
no,
say
you're right. You were 100. What the insane amount of laps led from the pole sitter. He looked awesome in practice. There's a
yeah, there was
reason why.
nothing indicating that he was going to be a mid-teens driver.
Yeah. Busher was good. Bubba was great. Top 10 ride. I
Let
was
me
kind of
just say
iffy on him just
from
because his history wasn't that amazing here, but
hey, from the fan side of me, I'm just going to say like congrats to Bubba for shitting on the haters one last time in 2024. Like this is not a fluke finish for
no.
them either. They
He
drove their
won.
way up there. They
Yeah, he
had the
was
speed.
so much more competitive in places that everybody just writes him off. And short tracks, road courses, he's getting better. Obviously, his teammate made the championship 4. Like I don't think he's I think he's a legitimate championship 4 contender over the next couple seasons.
Well, like
Whether he converts that to a championship or not, that's another question. But
yeah, I would say that them not making the playoffs next year would be a massive disappointment.
yeah, yeah,
That
for
is
sure.
assuming, of course, that 2311 is actually fielding cars with the current litigation that's still going on. But
Yeah, yeah. Um,
damn,
yeah.
Marty.
Gilliland was definitely the FRM car to go with, though.
Sure was.
Not McDowell.
Well, I mean,
McDowell
they
was
had
okay.
Ford had ghosted McDowell essentially as soon as he announced that, and so last race of the year, they don't want to give them any information for next year. So
Yeah, Gilliland scored more points, came in a lower ownership. I think he was a good play. So yeah, it was fine. It was a frustrating end of the season on DraftKings. I had a lot of cash lineups and stuff that were doing well, and then not so much. So we'll get back to the well next year. Let me see.
I just sent you the link in the private chat for the
Yeah, I have it. I pulled
futures.
it up.
Okay.
Did you have anything else from a 2024 perspective that you want to hit on before we talk 2025?
Yeah, just that. I mean, I think this year, as much as you got people bitching about Joey Logano winning and possibly not being an undeserving winner, lowest average finishing position of a champion ever, like blah blah blah. Do me a favor, go watch his post race press conference. Just wait for the question from Matt Weaver, and he'll basically explain it all to you in layman's terms for all you crazy traditionalists as to why that argument is completely null and void. And, let's also not forget, he probably should have had another win in his bank heading into this race had it not been for Austin Dillon going full send into a corner and punting him out of the way. So,
Yeah.
you can save me with all that bullshit. Like Kyle and I coming from the team sports stuff before jumping into NASCAR. This is the way playoffs operate. There is no sport outside of America or in America that rewards their regular season champ as much as NASCAR does. I mean, already the guy who goes in from the regular season championship or the guy who performs the best during the regular season, they already have a tremendous advantage here in the playoffs. So much so that they could essentially just ride around in the first round and a half and even in the first two rounds essentially to make it to the final eight. Like every other sport here in America, every other team sport for that matter, yes, you may have home field advantage, but in the end, like how much does that actually even matter when you're in a playoff situation where every team is bringing their best? Like,
Yeah.
so, um, obviously I'm probably on the outside of this stuff to most people in the sport, but I freaking love it. And Joey said as much. Had we still been in the season long championship format, you're not going to be getting these moments. You're not getting Tyler Reddick basically going checkers or wreckers like F this and going on the outside of Blaney at Homestead for the win and just
Yeah.
praying that his tires hold on there. You're not going to get Ryan Blaney using the bumper to almost every single person in the field to get the win at Martinsville. You're not getting a lot of these moments that we had this season if it wasn't for the current format.
And you get a regular season champion, just like every other sport, and then you get your playoffs. And it could be a wild card. You could sneak in like Joey Logano did. And we've seen wild card teams win the World Series and win the championship and win the Super Bowl. And
I
every
think
year in hockey, the team
oh
that's
yeah.
the President's Cup trophy doesn't necessarily even get to the Stanley Cup, let alone win it. So
And
there
then
there you win the regular season, you get into the playoffs, you obviously have a better advantage of getting to the Super Bowl or the championship game or whatever, but you still have to perform. You still have to do what you need to do. And
look, like Kyle and I chatted a little bit before jumping on here, but something that he kind of said that kind of flew in one and out the other, but he referenced like the Patriots. The year that they went undefeated, had we just awarded the Super Bowl to them because they were the best team in football and it wasn't even close, we would not have seen a 9-7 Giants team who just caught fire at the right time outplay them in the Super Bowl and win a
yeah,
championship. One of the most, unconventional roads to a championship in football history. We
yep,
would not have seen that happen had they just awarded a team their cake and let them eat it too without actually making them play the games.
yep, totally. All right, let's look at the where's the screen? Here it is. So this is your championship odds. I'm not betting anything now. obviously they're going to hold your money until this time next year. So if
Yep.
you want to give them a small business loan and let them hold it for you, then go for it. But I'm going to at least wait till closer to um, the season starting and probably mostly into the season for a lot of these guys, just because there's no reason to rush. They're putting these numbers out to test the waters to see where the markets move and then obviously jump in. So Larson, Bell, Byron, Blaney, Logano, Reddick, Hamlin, those are all inside 10 to 1. I think they're all pretty appropriately priced. I guess for you, Brian, I think Bell and Larson are some order are going to be the 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Do you think any of Byron, Blaney, Logano, Reddick, Hamlin float a little bit by the time we talk right before the Daytona 500?
I mean, just kind of anticipating NASCAR like falling even deeper into the dungeon of handle at sportsbooks now that the season is actually over. I don't really see these numbers getting bet down. Now, I think it's also important to remember to begin the 2025 season, we go Daytona, Atlanta, Coda, Phoenix. Phoenix is wonderful, but there's only a handful of guys that are going to be winning that race. The first actual toss-up race that we get isn't until the 5th race of the year. The first race in March, or the second race in March there, and that's going to be when we go to Vegas. And so I'm probably in a situation where even a guy like Larson or Bell, I mean, with the super speedways, Coda, and Phoenix, they're like, obviously Christopher Bell is going to be really strong, but I don't think you can get in on anybody. And I think a lot of these numbers may float. Like if somebody
Yeah.
starts the season with 2 consecutive wrecks at Daytona and Atlanta, which is highly probable, their numbers probably move a little bit.
Yeah, I think a lot of these, even like before we start the season, will float closer to double digits or add double digits. We did this last year with Reddick. I think you can make a similar quick case for Bell, where if you don't expect them to do great at Daytona and Atlanta, then maybe you look at them right before Coda, or you look at them right before Phoenix, and that's where you kind of maybe jump into the market a little bit. But yeah, I don't love any of these. And then Chase Elliott's at 12. We'll see. I mean, we bet it. I took some in 9 last year. I still think he has championship level winning ability, but I don't know. There's ups and downs, and then obviously we got a really nice number before the end of the year. Looked like he may win Martinsville. Obviously didn't, but he's someone that I'll kind of keep an eye on for a right price. I want more than 12 though. I think I need like 15. Tyrone Gibbs, same idea. I think he obviously needs to win before he can even.
I was just gonna say we've got to see him find victory lane before I'm jumping in on these numbers anymore. Because
what about Chase Briscoe jumping into the 19? We've seen that car be championship level. We've seen Briscoe be good at certain types of tracks. I'm really curious about him. He's a super speedway guy. He's a shorter, flatter guy. But is that him? Is that SHR the way they set up? Is that going to change in JGR? Is he going to be more consistent? Is he going to have different? Is he going to pop at different tracks? I literally don't know what to do with him next year.
Okay, Chase Briscoe is jumping into a 19 car that is fast at a lot of places, but the one constant for that team is James Small.
Who sucks?
I was just like, no offense, but some of the decisions that we've seen from that pit box over the last year plus have been very questionable. And so I will not be betting Chase Briscoe at 20 to 1 to win a championship when a Hall of Fame driver in Martin Truex Jr., who has come to tracks with race winning speed, has lost on numerous occasions because of decisions made not from his mind. Like, there is no way you're going to find me jumping on this outright until I see it on the track on a somewhat consistent basis next year. And, when is the last time you've seen a driver change rides and then immediately either continue their championship prowess or elevate themselves into a championship type of driver immediately. Yes, Tyler Reddick was extremely fast last year, but round of 8, like you could tell they were outmatched. And then Kyle friggin' Busch, Hall of Famer, went from JGR to also one of the most renowned teams in the sport, RCR. Yes, they had their struggles prior to him jumping into the 8 car, but he became like a non-factor in the second half of the year last year. Like if they can't do it, I don't trust Briscoe to do it with that team.
And he seems like a guy that if he struggles a little bit in the beginning is going to float like crazy. So
exactly.
If I can get him at 40, I'll jump in. If it's 20, I'm not really interested.
And then because you also got to look at the other guys that are going to be taking on all the holes. Like Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell are not going anywhere. Denny Hamlin is going to be fast. Ryan Blaney is going to be fast. William Byron's going to be extremely consistent. I mean,
Chastain is somebody that I'm always interested in. Obviously, bet him around 20 last year. I think 30 is a little more palatable.
That was a mistake.
Yeah. Well, I made 3 bets. I bet Chastain, Logano, and Keselowski basically before the season started. I thought they were all stupid bets when I was looking, and I was like, okay, well, I got to get around this with Larson, and then I had Bell, and then I'm like, okay, now I'm getting my card in a good spot, and I can cross these guys off. And of course, Joey F. and Logano is the guy that cashes it, but so I think the one, and one of these odds is unlike the other, and that's why Wallace at 100.
I was just gonna say,
should he be 12? No. Should he be 20? No. Should he be 35, 40, 45? Probably.
In a realistic world in comparison to the rest of the guys, like
I think he should be somewhere between Buescher and Busch.
Yeah.
Busch, yeah.
It's also really interesting. I mean, so they're moving away from Booty Barker. For this last race, obviously he was suspended, but they made the change to where he's taking on like a back end role with 2311, and they're transitioning to a new crew chief. And from the comments made by Bubba, this was, I don't want to say it was like a mutually decided upon decision between him and the team, and possibly even a conversation with Booty, but there was just apparently something missing that was pushing Bubba over the edge. And so I got to see what these guys unload like to begin the year. And I mean, like I referenced at the beginning of this segment here, we do have 2 super speedways. We know how strong Bubba could be there. I mean, if he wins the 500 or possibly at Atlanta early on in the year, that would be a great way to boost their confidence heading into the summer months.
And that's why I want to I'd grab just a little bit of it. Like, I'm not going crazy, but like he could easily win Daytona or Atlanta and be 35 to 1 to make the playoffs.
And then also at Las Vegas too, like the 1.5 package for 2311 has always been fairly strong. I know they struggled a little bit this year, but I mean, in years past, like they were some of the strongest cars.
Yeah. So that's the one that jumps out to me. Everything else is just like, it all makes sense, but I don't know. I'm not betting any of this stuff.
Well, I mean, like Gragson, new team. Barry, new team. Like Allmendinger jumping back into the 16. I'm not getting any action on that. Haley riding with he's in the 7, the Spire team. And then like McDowell jumping into the 71. There's so many changes at the back end here that guys that I think could potentially pop early. But again, like that's like the Daniel Suarez thing where I jokingly added 80 to 1 last year after he won Atlanta.
Yeah.
Like obviously I didn't have a reasonable expectation that he would be able to compete for a championship, but it is fun to be able to grab somebody who's already locked into the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is something we'll do between now and the season and maybe we can get someone who's smarter than us to come on and kind of talk about the transition and what we expect from all these guys in these cars. And maybe we can get a guest or two to kind of help us through that conversation, but there's a lot of changes and we have to obviously let everything settle with with all the teams and figure out who's going to have new rides next year and who's not. And is RFK really going to have another car, and what is Trackhouse's plan going to look like and all this stuff. So we'll get all that organized. We'll get all the information there.
One last point here. So shot in the dark, Shane Van Gisbergen, he is going to win a road course next year. I could almost. I'll go
It's going to
just
be
short
like
of
3 or 4 or
guaranteeing it.
5 to 1 at like 5 or 6 places.
But he is going to win a race next year on a road course. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed, but he's been improving at the short tracks. Like Martinsville, he looked very competent at that race. And when you look at the way the playoffs set up, we got Darlington, WWT, Bristol. I think he can ride around there if he's in a point situation off a couple wins at road courses to advance to the round of 12. Then we go to New Hampshire, flatter track, which I think benefits him and his braking style. Kansas, I don't know. Well, that's yet to be seen. But then we go to Charlotte Roval. And then the round of 8 is anybody's guess. Vegas, Talladega, and then Martinsville. Again, like, it would not surprise me one bit to see Shane Van Gisbergen in the round of 8 of the playoffs next year based off of his road course prowess in the regular season.
And I don't know if I'll necessarily get him to win the championship, but if you find me a good number to make the championship for, I think I might take that.
Well, and then if the odds are going to correlate any at 125 to 1, you're probably getting longer than 5 to 1, 6 to 1 on that. And sure, I'll take a shot at that because I do think it would be able to do that. Just small steps at the 1.5s and the regular ovals matched with how good he is at road courses. Like, hell yeah, I want some action on that.
Yep. So drop that. Drop in the comments. We want to know what you guys want to see during the off season. Let us know who your 2025 champion is going to be. The best bet for your 2025 champion as the numbers sit at BetMGM. Go check them out. Let us know what numbers you like the best. Season-long win contest. Is there any websites? Do you want to run it back on Grid Rival? What are your thoughts? Let us know all that stuff down in the comments. Obviously, you don't have to answer everything, but if you have thoughts on any of that stuff, holler. Let us know. Make sure you are subscribed so that way when Brian and I drop episodes throughout the off season, if we drop episodes, you'll get notifications. They'll show up in your feed automatically. Like, oh, NASCAR, let's talk. But yeah, it was a fun season, Brian. We really appreciate everybody who hung around and rode with us all year long. Got over 1,000 subs, which is a huge goal for us. So we really appreciate everyone who did that. We'll have to figure out kind of during the off season what we want our new goal to be. If you have yet to subscribe, if you've been watching as the season's gone along, consider subscribing. Turn on the bell notifications so you know when new episodes drop.
Tell your friends, NASCAR betting is fun.
We're working on our content for 2025. So if there's stuff that you think would be helpful, if you think there's updates to the newsletter, a variety of things. So holler, let us know. We're down to improve this thing. We want to make this the best possible experience for y'all. We want y'all to keep hitting winners and finding value and all that good stuff. But for the final time of the 2024 season, that's Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. Shouts to y'all for the ride in the whole season. Enjoy your off season. We'll see you back in February for the Daytona 500 and the 2025 NASCAR season. We'll talk to you next time.